Welcome to Doc Secret, the show where we uncover the playbooks, strategies, and stories behind the most successful dental and medical practice owners and the companies that serve them. This show is all about building the best practice. Whether you're a dental or medical student dreaming of private practice, a seasoned doctor looking to grow or sell, or an investor exploring the healthcare space, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Kevin Carl, and in today's episode, we're diving into the world of AI and technology in the world of dentistry. Let's get started. Welcome to Doc Secret. Joining me today is Danny Abraham, serial entrepreneur and founder and president of Orca Dental AI, a company dedicated to revolutionizing the dental industry through innovative AI-powered solutions. Danny Abraham, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Well, Danny, take us back. What inspired your journey from software programming and data recovery into the world of dentistry and AI?
Sure. So growing up, actually, my father is an orthodontist. So I saw a lot of the challenges of that world kind of from the sidelines growing up, seeing my father struggle with some of the challenges and also seeing some of the upsides, obviously, of the profession. But that was always kind of in the back of my mind, and I guess part of uh, me growing up. At some point, got very interested in technology, um, and um, and I founded a number of companies in the technological world. Again, technology being my kind of driver or the thing that pushed me towards my interest, my passion of starting up companies. And at some point, the two converged, and we realized, or I realized, that there's an opportunity with the kind of I would say about 8 years ago, a big uptick in AI technologies and a big breakthrough in AI technologies in the medical world specifically, that got me really interested and got me to realize that there's an opportunity here.
Was there an aha moment that led to Orca Dental and CephX?
Yes, there definitely was. I think, again, very much inspired by a number of medical companies that were doing sort of the same thing in the medical space, in general medical space. Of course, it's entirely different, and the whole flow of customers and who are your stakeholders and so on. But at some point, there was some kind of image deciphering tool that I saw uh, in the medical world, and I went, "Wow! I mean, why don't we do this in the dental world? It's like totally makes sense." And in a lot of ways, I think on a business level, there's even might be even more opportunity in the dental world than in the medical world. But I was definitely inspired and got that aha moment, as you say, from companies that do the same sort of thing in medical.
And so you have a deep technical background. How did your technical background shape the way you identified opportunities specifically in dental imaging?
I think it's much easier to envision, like, technically the entire flow of what you can provide and how you can build what you're going to provide if you have a technical background. So if you don't have a technical background, I think it's more difficult to envision the potential. Although that's only maybe half true. At least it's my approach to getting into kind of things that I'm passionate about. But yes, I could definitely. It was definitely easier for me to, in my mind at least, map out the roadmap towards how to build this thing out.
Well, let's get into some of the details. We're on Doc Secret, right? So we'd like to talk about the ins and outs. Danny, help us understand this technical world a little better for those who are less familiar. How does CephX work in real world dental practices? Give us the detail, how it actually works.
Okay, so CephX is more oriented to orthodontics within the dental vertical. There's, again, we believe more interesting opportunity there as far as we're concerned. It's also our bread and butter because that's kind of where we come from. Um, the way it works is that there's a number of analyses that have been traditionally done kind of manually, and there's a number of procedures and ways in which you can decipher dental imagery, which again traditionally is done manually, either by the practitioner themselves or by a radiologist or a specialist in dental radiology, which is even a more rare kind of animal. Um, and what we do is we take these procedures and try to automate them as much as possible, taking into account two verticals. One vertical is the clinical side. Where can we bring insight and information and crucial kind of data, which is otherwise hard to attain? Either it takes too much time, or practitioners find it difficult to actually be experienced in that sort of deciphering of information, or it's just generally difficult to do, manually, um, and not automatically. So that's one side. And then the other side is, how do we crunch down on the time that is spent on digital processes? So in dentistry, as you go along, there's more and more digital processes because things are getting more technological and then more accurate, and allowing you more in-depth information. The problem is that it takes a ton of time, and there's more clicks and more information to be fed into the machine and more data to kind of go through. Taking that and crunching it down has an immediate effect on the bottom line in a number of different ways. So these are the two kind of verticals that we're in. The reports and the different analyses that we provide, on the one hand, provide information regarding clinical findings, and on the other hand, we crunch down on the time that is usually spent on digital processes in the dental office.
Got it. And for those who are in our audience that are really interested in the technological aspects, could you briefly describe the role that artificial intelligence plays specifically in the functionality of CephX? How does the software really work?
I'll give an example, right? So a real life example. So one of our products is called automated Ceph tracing. So one of the things that an orthodontist will do about half the times, or at least 50% of the cases in orthodontics, there is a cephalometric analysis, which is a specific analysis done on a lateral x-ray of the patient. So this is a lateral x-ray from the side of the patient. It's not the small bite wings one. It's the actual full-size image. And that traditionally can take anywhere from a few minutes to 15 minutes. Sometimes a practitioner doesn't want to do it. They want to offload it onto an assistant, which can take time. Sometimes the assistant leaves and you have to teach another assistant how to do this. So all this is time consuming. And what we do is we've taken that procedure and automated it entirely. So now you just send us an image and we will have the AI perform this analysis within a few seconds. So we've even got a case study whereby a practitioner claims this saves him about over 5% of their time monthly, which is like a day a month, um, in actual workload and procedure. That's quite notable, and quite a considerable amount of time, and you know directly translates to bottom line. So this is an example of something we do, and it's kind of legacy technology. We've moved on to 3D technology, which is more complex, and we've got more features and so on.
Well, let's build on that a little bit here. So, aside from the time savings, are there other key advantages that AI brings to cephalometric analysis, T segmentation, airway evaluation, etc.?
Oh, sure. So another great example for what you're asking is, let's take the airway vertical. So if a practitioner takes CBCT images of their patient, which is quite common practice, more so in implant vertical, but growing amounts in orthodontics as well. Um, so one of the things that you can do is you can actually look at the airway and say, okay, I can see if there's a bottleneck or an airway which is constricted, which might lead to sleep apnea. So there's an indication that there might be obstructive sleep apnea with this patient. And the problem is going into each CBCT and looking into that and trying to figure out if there is or if there isn't, or is this above the threshold or below the threshold, and so on. Again, that's time consuming. We have a system where we automatically decipher this. So we automatically measure the airway volume. We will create a report that is depicted to the doctor how, what the airway volume looks like, what's the minimal area of this airway, what does the whole airway volume look like, and so on. Something which is great to communicate to the patient. But we'll also send an alert if the minimal area is under some threshold. So now the practitioner doesn't really have to go in and check every image themselves. They can just wait for us to float the critical information, which is we have found that this case has a constricted airway. You might want to check it out. You might want to show it to your patient. You might, want to take it through wherever you take it as a practitioner. But we have found the crucial clinical data and floated it to the practitioner automatically.
That's a great example. You've got to make sure I've got this right. You've got an international footprint of clients. Could you just describe a little bit about your current footprint of installations or usage in the global market?
Sure. So, uh, first of all, we're entirely SaaS. So you go in online, put in your credit card, and start using. Our customer base is predominantly North America, um, but within North America, we are growing very rapidly in the DSO space, which is obviously the biggest growing segment in the dental practice space in the States specifically. And that's where we're putting a lot of our focus, and we're working directly with DSOs or working with partners that work with DSOs like practice management software and different imaging packages that DSOs work with. Um, and the aspect of that is not only clinical and time saving. This is where aspect number 3, which I didn't mention, comes in, the issue of compliance. So the requirements for compliance are getting more and more stringent. You need to present more and more records in order to demonstrate that you are living up or providing services that are living up to the gold standard of care. And in order to demonstrate that, you need tools to show, if ever need be, probably in a court case situation, that you have held up the standard of care. So there's more and more, we're getting more and more customers that are using this not only as a clinical tool and not only as a time-saving tool, but also as a medical legal record in order to stay within the compliance and regulatory requirements.
Interesting, interesting. Well, I know CephX has been FDA cleared. Has that opened new doors for your platform in the US?
Absolutely. I think working with the bigger organizations, um, rightfully so. If we go back to the regulation issue, they need to know that you are FDA cleared. Um, so that it kind of opened the door for us to be able to work with larger organizations like DSOs or other providers. Yeah, FDA at some point was kind of very adamant about AI growing in dentistry. So it made a round of calls, let's put it that way, to make sure that if you're in the space, you better be compliant.
Well, that's fascinating. How have orthodontists and implementologists who are so reliant on these visualizations and the insight that your software provides, how have they responded to your AI tools? What are their, say, top use cases?
So again, just to reiterate, we're more on the orthodontic side. We do have some implant doctors, but they're a minority. That the majority are the orthodontists. Um, the response has been amazing. First of all, I mean, because you show them this magical thing that used to take, you know, a cumulative day out of a month, and now it happens. It's crunched down to a few seconds. There's, it's a strong kind of reaction of wow, you've managed to crunch my time down to nothing almost on these procedures. Um, and with a 3D, which is more is kind of a later stage development of ours. There's so many different ways to go and so many different tools that we're building on this platform, and we can see more and more researchers and opinion leaders and people who are able to look at orthodontics and say what's the real value of what we can get here. They are definitely stoked, and we're just getting great responses. But there is an education element of it because it's new. It's unlike cephalometric analysis, which is something that's been around for I don't know 100 years. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but it's been around for quite a few decades. Um, the 3D, obviously, CBCT machines haven't been around for that long, and definitely not segmentation and what you can do with segmentation. So we're also inventing clinical value as we go along, and we're also educating customers as to what can be done and what insight you can get through these tools.
That's got to be a heavy lift, right? I mean, I know the dental community is made up of a lot of smart folks, but there's an educational component to that. Could you tell us a little bit about what that looks like? Is that in pre-sales, sales? How does the educational component bring your clients along that journey of learning this new technology?
Sure. So I think there's kind of a number of different avenues where education manifests itself. First of all, opinion leaders and people who have like blog posts and talk about digital world or technology. Um, Orthodontists who like to engage in these technologies and find the value. They are one source of how we educate our potential customers of as to what can be done. Um, and then the other thing is, again, within the sales narrative, within the marketing kind of story that we tell, that's where we have to explain why the service that we're providing is of value and how it's of value. And there's a lot of different ways to do that, and it's definitely a challenge. But on the one hand, but on the other hand, when you manage to generate the aha moment for the customer, then you're kind of locked in, and you're like, you've invented sliced bread. So yeah, so it's as you say, it's a challenge, heavy lifting, but there's a lot of reward to it as well.
That's great. Amazing progress, and congratulations on your success thus far. Let's take a step back for a second and look at AI a bit more broadly. And I'd love to get your perspective on what subspecialties you think are next for AI disruption. Is it endodontics, periodontics, oral surgery? What do you see from your perspective?
Well, in dentistry in general, yes, there's definitely things happening in different verticals, but not only different verticals of dentistry, but also in different providers in the value chain of dentistry. So, for example, a big thing that's happening is assistance to insurance companies, right? So, insurance companies, there's a lot of difficulties there. There's a lot of policing that needs to be done. There's a lot of deciphering whether cases are legitimate cases or unlegitimate cases. Are providers being compliant to the requirements of the insurance companies? So there's a lot of things I know that insurance companies are struggling with, and AI is a great tool to be able to kind of monitor and police these issues. And I know there's already a few companies kind of specifically catering to that challenge. I think, yeah, it's definitely the next big thing.
And do you think that's it? Would that be, in your view, an underrated application of AI, or are there other underrated applications of AI in dentistry that are just beginning to emerge?
Well, now we're at a stage where I feel it's the opposite. Like there's the space is a little bit flooded. Like suddenly AI has become such a attractive term, not only for for the actual profession, but even for um, raising capital, right? If you want to say the right buzzwords. So in some respects, there's a little bit of dilution of the term. Um, are there uh, are there technologies that are specifically underrated? I can't think of any. Again, I think it's the opposite. I think there's a little bit too much. Um, but it'll even out and equalize. I'm pretty certain.
The pendulum swings, right?
Yeah, and also, yeah, the pendulum swings, and also, we're now at the era of Gen AI. Okay, so possibly there's some, opportunities there. I don't know yet, and obviously Gen AI is something which is unregulated by nature. So, you know, I don't know how it'll be adopted, but I'm sure there is something there. Um, and I think that'll be the kind of next big thing, but it'll take a while.
Yeah, I was at the Human X conference out in Las Vegas where the whole topic is really around trust and sort of this human element of AI, the need for strong ethics and what have you. And that was a big topic there. So I can certainly appreciate that. And speaking of that, are there risks or misconceptions about AI adoption that you think dental professionals really need to understand?
I think in general, again, since the term has become so diluted and so overused that um, sometimes practitioners think it's like this magic kind of wand that, can you do me an ABC that automatically does my entire procedure? And it's sometimes we need to explain it. It's not that simple, and there's a lot that goes into this, and a lot of data that is needed, and a lot of kind of machine learning that is needed. So I think the overuse of the term and kind of the expectations that are now growing in the minds of everybody, not only practitioners, are making it sometimes a challenge to say, hold your horses. Where we can't just wave a wand and make everything happen automatically. So yeah, but I mean that's kind of, I would say, a general challenge that you have with new emerging technologies that are taking over so aggressively.
So I guess what I'm hearing from you is that there's an overused term, AI, right? And it's kind of all encompassing of AI and automation, and everything seems to be lumped into the AI bucket. Maybe even for, as you said, capital raising reasons or otherwise. Well, let's maybe take a step back from the term AI and just as a technologist, right? As a founder and leader of a company in this space, let's imagine that it's say 2030. What does a typical day look like in the technologically enhanced dental practice?
So I would say, firstly, the time take that it takes to be able to build up a treatment plan or some kind of initial insights in with regards to the patient is cut down to almost nothing. Patient comes in for a consult. There's a few X-rays taken, few images taken, and immediately the doctor gets the full scope of, this is what we found, this was what can be done. We suggest option ABC, with great images and great videos and great kind of visuals to convey this to the patient. All automated, all kind of more or less immediate. Um, and yeah, patient can start making decisions very, very quickly. One of the problems that practitioners have is that patient comes in for a consult, and then when they leave, before anything is started, the practitioner doesn't know if the patient is going to come back. So you might decide not to do the treatment. You might decide to go to another practitioner who's cheaper. You, the, it's a big deal for practitioners to manage to get the case acceptances as fast as possible. And these technologies will definitely help that. Um, and they will also create more predictable treatment plans, leading to more treatment success and patient satisfaction, ultimately.
Well, you described a future that sounds great and it's faster, better for the patient. Let's go back to maybe something you hit on there, which is what's the role of the practitioner? What's the role of the clinician when AI can already handle so much of the imaging, diagnostics, etc.?
Well, I would say in orthodontics, uh, unlike maybe general dentistry, but in orthodontics, at the end, the practitioner is already a little bit of a conductor because a lot of the times they don't do the physical work. It's the assistants who will do a lot of the actual applying work. Um, and they do the planning, but now there will be a tool that does most of the narrows down the options for them and kind of shines a light on problematic issues. So it will kind of crunch down the conductor's role, the orthodontist role, to be someone who's in charge of critical thinking and decision making. So it's really like, the difference between running your business without a personal assistant and with a personal assistant, right? You're still the even with a personal assistant running all your errands and booking all your, flight tickets and appointments and whatever. Um, you're still taking care of the business. You just offloaded a lot of the heavyweight, which is unnecessary. And so one, you're a conductor, but you're also a much more informed conductor. So you have, again, this insight that you did not have before.
Danny, do you think we're going to see a world in the not too distant future where the AI is not just assisting, but it's also recommending treatment plans?
Yeah, it'll get there eventually. It'll take a while. It'll also require a lot of regulatory hurdles because obviously if you're reliant on a system that does bad recommendation, then you're in trouble. So to make sure that the recommendations are correct 99.99 whatever is required percent of the times, you will have to go through very stringent clinical trials, and the regulatory approvals will take a while, but I believe it'll get there eventually.
And in that world, maybe it's the world today, right? What do you see through your lens? What will distinguish elite dental practices, if I may use that term, from quote unquote average practices? What's going to be the differentiator?
I think it's again, and this I don't think has really changed, or at least this concept hasn't changed. But I think the ones who adopt new technologies, and this is not only for orthodontists, this is probably for most businesses, small and large, the ones who adopt, uh, or the early adopters of technology who embrace the change that technology brings and are willing to pay the price of, expenditure and learning curve and so on for the benefit of getting to a place which is more efficient, less time consuming, and provides ultimately better results, both in case acceptance and treatment outcome. They're going to benefit the most. So it's all about embracing technology. And that's a little bit of why I'm in this vertical. At the end of the day, ultimately, I believe that with these technologies, we can improve treatment. So the patient has a better life, the practitioner has a better life. And if we can, take a little bit out of that, then I'm happy with it.
Danny, as a founder and someone who's lived and breathed it over these past years, what was your biggest challenge scaling AI into a clinical market and a regulated market, as you were just talking about, like dentistry?
So a number of challenges. One is again regulation. So going through the proper kind of challenges and hurdles of regulation is a lot of blood, pain, and blood, sweat, and tears. Let's put it that way. You know, suddenly you're not dealing with a product; you're dealing with this whole other entity, which you have to maintain, you have to take care of. You can't just ignore it. And it takes away from your focus. So that's a challenge. It's even, I would say, an emotional challenge to accept that that is part of the game, and part of the world you live in. It's also, at the end of the day, it's a blessing, because just as a business, the more hurdles you have to jump through, and the more hurdles you've already jumped through, the bigger the moat is, as far as competition is concerned. Um, so that's one hurdle. The other one is, again, AI is becoming very prevalent, a very attractive word within the space. So you have a lot of competition that you have to contend with. That's definitely a challenge that, or force to be reckoned with. And it's one of the things that all you also have to accept, that there's going to be other players, and it's okay. And may the best man win, or may the best people live together and get some share of the business. That's also okay as far as I'm concerned. Um, I'm just a big believer in, at the end, ultimately, what value I'm bringing to the whole scope of dentistry, and not necessarily, what is the capital value of what we can generate as far as sales, or as far as growth, and so on. So I've been very focused on that, and I think it's that ultimately led to good results.
That's great insight. I appreciate your perspective. We've got a varied audience here, Danny. We've got dental students and private equity and everything in between. What advice would you give to a young dentist or startup founder who's thinking about launching a dental technology business?
Wow. So yeah, I would say that one of the things I wish I had known earlier was to try and look at the space holistically, rather than, hey, here's a great feature we could automate with AI, and let's see what can be done. So that was our path, and I think it, you know, because that was our path, it kind of slowed us down, rather than, you know, we want to change the way dentistry is done. Right? That's a better vision. That's a better kind of objective to work towards. And that's what I would recommend, startup founders to think of in the dental space. Like, what is the holistic vision, and not what is one feature you can bring to the table.
Great advice.
That may be necessary, maybe it may be a cool feature, or maybe a time saving feature, but it's a very discrete part of something that has to be a larger vision.
Great. Yeah. Uh, it's interesting. I've had a number of conversations here recently about what dental students are learning and being taught in the schoolhouse. What do you think the schoolhouse should be doing as it relates to AI and technology to best prepare dentists for the marketplace of today?
Again, I think it goes back to embracing, accepting, adopting, because there's a motivation to try and teach the dentists the kind of basics. And if you jump straight into technology, then they're missing out on the basics. Yeah, and I've got kids in school who have the schools have the same challenge. Well, should we let the kids use ChatGPT, or shouldn't we let them? Because they're all using it anyway. So, do how do we embrace this into a way that is still has value, educational value, but doesn't entirely overtake their ability to learn, or to grow as students, or as dental practitioners. And I would say institutions should definitely embrace this, because it brings value more than it causes damage, like by long, long, or very, very a big gap. So I would definitely say embrace, adopt, and accept.
What great advice. Great advice. I think for any student in any profession right now. Now, I know you've been through FDA clearance, which I know is a huge hurdle in terms of time and investment to get through that process. You're an international company, you've launched multiple ventures. What have you learned, Danny, about staying adaptable?
Of one that you can never rest on your laurels. Um, you have to, it's an ongoing battle that will be part of your journey, no matter which part of the journey you're in. And no matter, the size of your venture or the stage of your venture. And again, I would say, like before, embrace it, adopt it, understand that being on the forefront is also a challenge, but it's also your moat. Uh, Getting the FDA clearance was also a challenge for us, but it's also our moat now. It's also our, it's turned into an opportunity or an advantage. And Yeah, I would say that's kind of my main message with regards to your question. Yeah.
Well, thanks for that, Danny. I know being adaptable is a key life skill, and being quick on your feet is going to help you personally here for this next piece of our segment. We always wrap up our show with a lightning round. These are quick answers, first thing that comes to mind. Are you ready?
Don't embarrass me, but yes.
All right, let's go. What's one dental specialty where AI is going to explode in the next 3 years?
Orthodontics, for sure. It's already happening, and that's why we're in this business. And I can see it. I can see it happening before my eyes. No doubt about it.
All right, great. What's one book you've read that has had a significant impact on you?
Uh, Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. So not the kids' version, but the actual original book from I think the 1700s. Amazing, amazing book, an amazing example of how something from 400 years ago, yeah, almost 400 years ago, can be still very, very relevant today. Interactions between people, just the politics between people. I found it fascinating and inspiring.
Wow, that's a unique answer. I ask this question very frequently. Great answer. What's your favorite piece of technology other than your own in the dental world right now?
My favorite piece of technology, well, I like the aligner business. The advances in the aligner business are amazing, and I one specific it's not necessarily aligner, but one specific area that I like is the remote monitoring systems that are emerging. There's one big company in France, and there's another one in the States. I think those will become ubiquitous and great technologies, and both great technology and great business. So yeah, it's something I really like.
Yeah, we just had a segment on that very thing where that very thing came up. Happy to share the details with you afterwards.
Sure.
What is one thing that dentists are still doing manually that drives you crazy?
Oh, well, there you go back to our bread and butter, which is cephalometric analysis. So there are actual people or orthodontists who are still taking like this semi-transparent paper, putting it on the image, and drawing an outline with a pencil, and then taking a ruler and a protractor and starting and measure angles and distances, and that's got to take, I don't know, half an hour to an hour a case. You know, I've got a 2 second solution for you. Use it, please.
Great answer. What is one principle that you live by as an entrepreneur?
Honesty, um, above anything else. So if I'm in a situation where I have to convey my thoughts on something and I can convey them in a way that generates a sale or a narrative, which maybe has more chances to actually converting or acquiring a customer or an opinion, or it doesn't matter who I'm talking to, trying to convince someone to do something, I'd rather be honest, even at the expense of selling a less attractive story. In the long run, in my experience, I've learned this. In the long run, it just benefits you more because because dealing with selling a story is sometimes more pricey than just being honest.
That's a wonderful life lesson for everyone. And Danny, I appreciate your insights. Danny, that's it for the lightning round. Danny Abraham, thank you so much for joining us here on Doc Secret. It has been a privilege and a pleasure. Thank you.
Kevin, I really appreciate you having me on. Thanks a lot.
If you liked today's episode, please like and subscribe, and most importantly, share this podcast with others you think may benefit from the Doc Secrets shared here today. Thanks for joining us on today's episode, and we'll see you next time.